Check. Hello students, all of you, welcome back to your own channel Vedantu Science Olympiad. This is Baswarat, so your biology master students. Welcome to the lecture 3 of breathing and exchange of gases students. In the first class and the second class, we have covered the basics and also the mechanism of respiration, mechanism of breathing. Remember, in the previous class, I told you how does the movement of diaphragm, plays a very important role in the opening and the increase and decrease of the thoracic cavity, and how pressure plays a very important role in inspiration and expiration. So in the yesterday's previous class, we have learnt about inspiration and expiration mechanism. Proper mechanism has been taught. Apart from that, we also learnt about different types of capacities. Okay students, volumes and capacities has been done in the previous class. So if you have not watched those lectures, please do watch those lectures. Very important. Now, in today's class, what will be studying students? In today's class, the main focus has to be something called as oxygen dissociation curve. Now, before we understand the entire curve, usko samajhne se pehle na, there are few other concepts which we need to understand. Again students, today's class is going to be very small. So आराम से ना समझो आज के concepts, बहुत ही easy है. We'll understand one by one. Okay. Now students, now first things first, students, first things first is called as exchange of gases. ये exchange of gases कहां पर होते हैं और किस प्रकार से होते हैं, that will understand students first of all. Okay, I'll give you small students, I'll tell you a small thing. This entire exchange of gases is there, right? It happens in two places actually. It happens in two places actually, entire exchange of gases. For example, here we have this balloon like structure called as alveoli, okay, and here we have a blood vessel. Yes, here we have a blood vessel. Now this alveoli has oxygen transportation is happening from the alveoli. Fresh oxygen is sent to the bloodstream here, and from this bloodstream CO2 is sent back. CO2 is sent back here. This much all of you know. In the previous class also we discussed this. Previous class also Tejas, we discussed this right now. Now similarly, let's say here is a blood vessel, same blood vessel, and here I have a tissue. A tissue is here. Tissue, which all the different tissues in our body. Now understand, this oxygen is now entering the tissue, and this oxygen is used by the tissue. Now once the tissue is using the oxygen, remain whatever CO2 is released outside, again back to the blood vessel. Back to the blood vessel, CO2 is released outside. So this is the entire mechanism, or I would say two places where exchange of gases takes place. So point number one is alveoli and the blood vessel. That is the first exchange. And the second exchange is between the blood vessel and the tissue. So these are the two locations where exchange of gases takes place. Which gases? CO2 and oxygen. So both of these gases will take it, students. Questions, students, I forgot to get the questions. I'll try to find the questions in the last 5 minutes from the PPT which I have. Okay, don't worry, I'll try to find some questions for you. Okay, see, alveoli are the primary site for exchange of gases. See, alveoli are the primary site for exchange of gases. Exchange of gases also occur between blood and tissue. So between blood and tissue also gases undergoes exchange. Okay, CO2 and CO2 are exchanged in these sites by simple diffusion. So with the help of simple diffusion, exchange of gases takes place, mainly based on the pressure and concentration gradient. इसका मतलब क्या है स्टूडेंट? इसका मतलब क्या है? Students, all of you know chemistry. Students, all of you know chemistry, yes or no? All of you know chemistry. If all of you know chemistry, students, can anyone tell in this last point, let's say in this room right now, let's say this is A and this is B. All of you in this room A, there are lot of gas molecules are present. Let's say different types are present. present. Gas molecules are present here. Okay. Different types of gas molecules are present in the air. Now, can I tell in this A chamber the pressure is actually high here? Pressure is actually high. Now, all of you tell me, will the exchange of gases or transportation of gases or the movement of gases, will it happen from A to B? All of you tell me, yes or no? So that is called as your pressure gradient. Gradient means difference. So whenever there is a difference like this, there is an exchange of gases happening. So it is mainly based on the pressure or concentration gradient. This right here is pressure gradient. From A to B, there will be exchange of gases. Clear, all of you? So this is actually one of the factors. So I will call it as first factor. First factor for the entire thing to happen. First factor, how the exchange of gases can take place. First factor. Okay. First factor is the pressure gradient or concentration gradient. Always from high pressure to low pressure. High pressure to low pressure always. Take it, students. Now what is the second? What is the second factor, I would say, for exchange of gases? Second factor is solubility. Now for example, students, CO2 is more soluble and O2 is less soluble. Let's say some gas is more soluble. Will it easily dissociate? Will it easily transport? Hai na? All of you students, all of you. If CO2, the solubility of CO2 is 20 to 25 times higher than the O2. So can I tell transportation of CO2 is very easy? All of you. Because it is getting dissolved easily, it can also transport easily. है ना? पानी के अंदर मिल रहा है. Like it can dissolve in the blood, not पानी here, blood. So it can also dissociate. It can also transport easily, exchange easily. So second factor is what? Second factor is solubility of gases, students. Second factor is solubility of gases. Solubility of gases. First factor is pressure or concentration gradient. Now students, what is the third factor? Now all of you think logically right now. Okay. There are two scenarios. Scenario 1, scenario 2. Okay, all of you. Now in the first scenario, there is a very large wall here, and in scenario 2, there is a very thin wall here. Tell me, all of you, in which case diffusion is easy? All of you. In which case diffusion is easy? Tell me now, all of you. Obviously in the option number 2, in the second scenario, diffusion is easy. Why? Because the membrane is very thin. Membrane is very thin. So there are, if I say three factors on which diffusion can happen. The first factor is pressure gradient, high pressure to low pressure. Second factor is the solubility of the gas, more soluble, better the diffusion. And the third is the thin membrane. If there is thin membrane, exchange can happen very easily. Students, any doubt here? Students, any doubt here? So three main reasons for exchange of gases now. Now, let's try to understand the third point even more detail. Third point even more in detail. And this scenario inside our body. Students, shall we understand? समझो इस बात को. ये scenario हमारे body के अंदर किस प्रकार से है? Shall we understand that? Okay. Now, students, let me just draw a diagram. Let me erase this. Let me erase this and draw one more diagram for you. Okay. Let's say this is the alveoli. Alveoli. Here we have the blood vessel is present here. Blood vessel is present here, students. Now, students, haven't I been telling you this alveoli is made up of very thin squamous epithelium layer? All of you, this entire alveoli is made up of very thin layer, very thin layer here, thin layer of squamous epithelium, very thin layer, very thin layer. Even the blood capillaries or blood vessels are also made up of very thin layer, very thin layer, very thin layer, students, very thin layer. Now all of you understand, students, what are the three different layers here? The first one is your here. The first layer is nothing but, in this diagram if you see, it is the alveolar wall. Yes or no? Alveolar wall outside, very thin alveolar wall. Then this is the middle part, is the second. What is the second region called as? Second region is called as basement substances. Basement substances. Okay. Now this third is called as endothelium. Third is called as endothelium layer. Endothelium layer. Now there are three things present, student. Three things present. Now how much do you think they are? How much big the layer is? पहले हमने बनाया था ना, this middle layer. This is the middle layer right now. Okay. Here we have some tissue. Here we have some tissue. But how thin is the layer? Students, what if I tell you, students, what if I tell you, I don't know, it's given here. It is given somewhere, students. What if I tell you this entire thing, right? All three layers, 1, 2, 3. All three layers is just 0.2 mm thick. That's all. Very, very thin. Yes, it also not as a membrane per se, it is a middle ground. It is a middle ground, basement substances. There will be substance therefore which helps in diffusion. It's a middle ground, that's all. So entire thing, this layer, middle substance, and this layer, endothelium, right? Endothelium and the alveolar wall, which is made up of squamous epithelium, all three are just 0.2 mm. इतना पतला है ये, इतना पतला students, बहुत पतला है. And that is why what happens? That is why from here to here oxygen can go easily. From here to here, from the CO2 can go very easily. The diffusion of gases can happen very easily because the membrane is very, very thin membrane, very thin membrane. All of you understood? The three factors. First factor is pressure gradient, second factor was the solubility, and the third factor is the membrane, very thin membrane. Okay, all of you? Clear? Clear, all of you students? Clear? Yes? Clear, all of you? Yes? See here. The walls of alveoli are very thin and has a rich network of blood capillaries. Due to this, alveolar walls seem to be sheet of flowing blood called as respiratory membrane. Okay, also called as alveolar capillary membrane. This one, respiratory membrane or alveolar capillary membrane. This one is the one. Okay, very thin membrane. Now, students, the respiratory membrane, 0.2 mm thick, consists of alveolar epithelium near the alveoli, epithelial basement membrane, the middle one, substance is membrane, and thin interstitial space is present, capillary basement membrane and capillary endothelium. This is extra information, students. इतना सब मत पढ़ो, इतना काफी है, तीन काफी है, 1, 2, 3, इतना काफी है, students. Okay, three things are present, students. Three things are present. Now, how many of you know what is partial pressure of a gas? Students, how many of you know what is partial pressure of a gas? Students, quickly in the chat. What do I mean by partial pressure of a gas? Quick. If you don't know, ask me, I'll teach you what is partial pressure of a gas. If you know, very good. If you do not know, you need to know for this concept. Now, what is the meaning of partial pressure of a gas? Understand. Now, let's say this is a room. This is my room only, let's say. This is my room. Now, in this room, can I tell there is only one gas in this room? Is it possible that in this one room, there is only one gas? मेरे अगल बगल में सिर्फ एक ही gas है? No, not possible. In my room right now, there is something called as a mixture of gases. Yes or no? There is something called as mixture of gases. There can be oxygen, there can be CO2 everywhere, CO2, there can be carbon monoxide, I hope not. Okay, there can be lot of gases. There is basically something called as air in my room. Air is nothing but what? All of you. What is air? Air is nothing but mixture of gases. All of you know air is nothing but mixture of gases. Now all of you, in this air or mixture of gases, do you think every gas will be able to produce same pressure? No. Depending upon the concentration of the gas, it can provide some pressure. Yes or no? That is called as partial pressure. That is called as what, students? Partial pressure. So if I ask you definition, partial pressure is nothing but it is the pressure created by individual gas in air, basically in a mixture of gases. That is called as partial pressure. That is called as partial pressure of a gas. The pressure is created by one particular gas. Now here we are not interested in any of the gases except two. Only two are important. In this chapter we need to know the partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of CO2. ये दोनों हमको बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. एटमॉस्फेयर में कितने हैं, alveoli में कितना है इसका partial pressure in the blood vessels, oxygenated blood, deoxygenated blood, and also in the tissue. In all of these different places, the partial pressure of oxygen and partial pressure of CO2 is very important for us. It is very, very important for us. Okay. Now, for example, here is a list, students. Here is a list. For example, the exchange of O2 and CO2 occur via simple diffusion, all of you know, mainly based on the pressure gradient. Pressure contributed by individual gas in a mixture of gas is called as partial pressure. एक ग्रुप के अंदर एक गैस कितना प्रेशर दे रहा है, partial pressure कहते हैं हम उसको. Now, here we are only interested, students, here we are only interested in the oxygen and CO2 partial pressure. See, we can see here, P is written here, P माने partial pressure. Now, for example, in the atmospheric air, हमारे इसके एटमॉस्फेयर के अंदर सबसे ज्यादा है ऑक्सीजन का पार्शियल प्रेशर 159, while CO2 is 0.3. So CO2 is actually very less partial pressure generated by your CO2. In the alveoli, again oxygen is more, क्योंकि ऑक्सीजन तो alveoli के अंदर घुस रहा है ना, ऑक्सीजन alveoli के अंदर घुस रहा है, so obviously alveoli के अंदर ज्यादा होगा और यहां पर कम obviously. और deoxygenated blood के अंदर obviously क्या कम होगा स्टूडेंट्स? See, it says deoxygenated माने क्या? deoxygenated माने वहां पर ऑक्सीजन कम है, तो obviously यहां पर 40 ज्यादा होगा 45. In the oxygenated blood, again it will be increasing more. Here it is less again. In the tissues, oxygen is less. Why? Because oxygen is used in the tissues, and here it is 45. Students, this table you have to know to some extent. ये table कुछ levels तक ना याद रखना पड़ेगा. Here I can help you with one small trick here. The small trick is, all of you know, in atmosphere air CO2 is less 0.2. You can remember this. In alveoli it is less, it is 40. Oxygenated blood, it is 40 here, but it is then deoxygenated blood. In deoxygenated blood, see, wherever it is less 40, oxygenated blood, CO2 is less, so 40 again. Here in tissues, oxygen is less, 40 again. So you can see one small trend that whichever the gases, oxygen or CO2, whichever the gases, whenever it is actually less in one particular place, it is always 40 only, 40 mmHg. Okay? See here, students, see here. Atmospheric air, this you can have to remember. Okay? Alveoli, यहाँ पर CO2 कम है तो 40. Deoxygenated blood, ऑक्सीजन कम है तो 40. ऑक्सीजन ब्लड के अंदर CO2 कम है तो 40. टिश्यूज के अंदर ऑक्सीजन कम है तो 40. So this 140, 40, 40 you can remember, but rest you have to remember this. 104, 45, 95. You have to remember this. ये याद रखना पड़ेगा, इतना रखना पड़ेगा. Now, how can we trace the mechanism of flow of these gases with the help of this data? Let's understand like how this data can help you to understand the flow of oxygen and CO2 in our body. किस तरह से समझेंगे? देखो स्टूडेंट्स, वेरी इजी है, बहुत इजी है. Now here I have made a graph for, I have made diagram for you. This is atmosphere. This is atmosphere. यहां पर है हमारे पास पहले atmosphere बना हुआ है, यहां पर पहले हमारे पास यहां पर atmosphere है, ये क्या atmosphere, ठीक है. Now all of you, हमको पता है atmosphere के अंदर partial pressure of oxygen is 159, right? It is 159, 0.3 of CO2, 0.3 of CO2 here. Now here in the alveoli, it is oxygen is around 104, CO2 is around 40. Now obviously students, right, class 9th MIT, you have to learn, you can't do anything backlog, right? Now all of you tell me, the oxygen will always go from high partial pressure to low partial pressure, high pressure to low pressure always. So here 159 inside 104. So can I tell oxygen is entering inside? Oxygen is entering inside. Okay. So इसकी वजह से you can say difference here. You can see a difference here, 105 and 104. So oxygen can enter inside easily. अभी अंदर की तरफ ऑक्सीजन आ गया, अभी अंदर की तरफ ऑक्सीजन आ गया अभी. Okay, learn the classes, don't worry, it's very easy. Okay, now students, now this oxygen, now it will actually enter what? It will actually enter this bloodstream right now. Here, bloodstream right now, bloodstream, right? This bloodstream basically has the oxygen 104. Here inside it is entering it, here it is 104 right now. Now oxygen from here, it has to enter this bloodstream here, bloodstream. So here we can see 95, here we can see 104. So from high pressure to low pressure, can I tell this oxygen is still traveling? Oxygen is still traveling. This is oxygenated blood. Oxygenated blood is traveling here. Okay. Now students, now टिश्यूज के अंदर कितना ऑक्सीजन है? 40. यहां पर 90. हाई प्रेशर टू लो प्रेशर, ऑक्सीजन इज एंटरिंग इनसाइड. सो हमने क्या पढ़ा अब तक? हमने पढ़ा कि whenever there is high pressure to low pressure, transportation of oxygen is happening. Out atmosphere 159, inside 104. High pressure to low pressure entering is done. Now in the alveoli it is 104. Bloodstream 95. It is entering. Oxygen is entering. Okay, oxygen is entered now. Now in the oxygenated bloodstream, oxygen is around 95. Inside the tissue it is around 40. So high pressure to low pressure enter. So right now O2 is present where? Oxygen is in the tissue right now. All the oxygen is in the tissue. Now this oxygen will actually be used right now. And once the tissue will use the oxygen, it will release out CO2. Yes or no? Now in the tissue, CO2 is how much? CO2 is 45 here. 45. In the this stream, bloodstream here, it is 40. So यहां से CO2 बाहर निकलेगा क्या? स्ट्रीम में जाएगा बाहर, CO2 निकल के बाहर जाएगा ना? Obviously जाएगा स्टूडेंट्स, obviously जाएगा. So ये सारा का सारा CO2 है ना जो अंदर की तरफ टिश्यू के अंदर, वो सारा का सारा बाहर चला जाएगा अभी, क्योंकि इट वाज हियर 40, 45, हाई प्रेशर टू लो प्रेशर. Now this is the deoxygenated bloodstream right now. Here deoxygenated blood, oxygen is how much? 40 here. CO2 is how much? 45. Now can this oxygen go back here? No. Oxygen will never travel. Oxygen will never travel from here. From here we are supposed to track CO2 right now. CO2. Okay. Now इस blood vessel के अंदर में क्या है? इस blood vessel के अंदर अभी 45 mmHg का CO2 है. बाहर की तरफ कितना है? बाहर की तरफ 0.3. So high pressure to low pressure. CO2 is outside. CO2 is outside, students. Okay. Students, I'll give you exactly 1 minute. Absorb the information. Give me 1 minute, students. Understood, all of you? It's everywhere high pressure to low pressure transportation is happening. See here. First, atmosphere 105 entering inside. 104. 104 into the bloodstream. Into the bloodstream. That is your 95. Entering again. 95 to the tissue. 95 to 40. Done. From tissue, oxygen is used in the tissue. In the tissue, CO2 is released outside. Now this CO2 is 45 here, it is 40 here. So it is again sent back to the tissue, deoxygenated stream. Now in this deoxygenated stream, CO2 is 45. Outside it is how much? It is 0.3. So it will just move outside. CO2 will go outside. So that is actually how the partial pressure plays a very important role in the transportation of CO2 and oxygen. Okay, so it's given here also. See this. Partial pressure of CO2 is higher, 45 mmHg in deoxygenated blood than in the alveoli. So carbon dioxide passes through the blood to the alveoli. See here, all students. Here also. One more time, it's given here. More than this, this is very easy to understand. This is very easy to understand. Very easy to understand. This one is actually very easy to understand. The whole point is how the difference in the partial pressure is. Always remember, entire movement is happening from high pressure to low pressure. Always low partial pressure, high to low. That's all. High to low it happens. Okay, high to low it happens. Okay. Now students, now let's understand something called as how is oxygen actually transported in the blood. Now what is the mode of transportation of oxygen? Like how is it even traveling? Now all of you should know oxygen is traveling with the help of two main things. One is plasma, which some of you might not know. The other one is hemoglobin. So these two factors are very important for transportation of oxygen in our blood. Okay? So oxygen is traveled mainly because of dissolved gases. That is about 3% of oxygen in the blood is dissolved in the plasma, which carries the oxygen to the blood cells. So 3% by plasma, remaining 97% of oxygen is carried through hemoglobin. All of you know hemoglobin, students. Hemoglobin has what? Hemoglobin has iron in it. Iron. Pata na hemoglobin molecule. This hemoglobin molecule, which is a tertiary structure of protein. This hemoglobin molecule can take oxygen and it can travel with the help of oxygen. So oxygen will sit on a taxi. It will sit on a taxi. The taxi is hemoglobin, and hemoglobin will travel everywhere, and it will drop it out. Okay. Students, I am thinking we will start with question practice. What do you say, students? Instead of full classes, I am thinking last 2 months we'll focus on question practice. What do you think, students? What do you think? How is the idea? Because syllabus is very vast, all of you know. The syllabus is very vast in biology especially. So I believe if you can start solving questions of NSAJS, PYQs, or the most important questions from every single chapter, that would be more beneficial, I would believe, because when you solve questions you will tend to learn more, and if you do not know any concept you will tend to improve there also. Yes or no? All of you agree on that? All of you agree on that? Yes. So if you know the concepts here and there, we will plan, not 2 months, 1 month we'll plan. Just 1 more month we can learn actually. 1 month for question practice is enough, like dedicated question practice. So this 1 month we'll try to finish how much syllabus is possible. How much of a syllabus is possible to finish in next 1 month. After that, last 1 month we will do every single day question practice. हर दिन question practice लगातार, ठीक है? Now students, now this is clear to all of you. The blood carries oxygen from lungs to the heart and from the heart to the various parts, and the medium of transportation of oxygen and CO2. Right? Blood is the medium of transportation. Transportation of oxygen in the blood takes place through two manners. The first manner is what? The first manner is plasma. Plasma can dissolve some oxygen, and the second manner is basically the hemoglobin, oxyhemoglobin, students. Oxyhemoglobin will capture the hemoglobin and make it travel. See, student. This is your hemoglobin molecule. This is the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin gives red color because of the iron. Hemoglobin gives red color because of the iron present. That's why our blood is also red. Our blood is red because of hemoglobin actually. Because of hemoglobin. It has 2 alpha chains and 2 beta chains. Okay. Now student, listen to me very carefully. All of you. Very important. Oxygen can bind with hemoglobin in reversible manner. Now, what is the meaning of reversible manner? Understand, very important. The meaning of reversible manner is that hemoglobin can bind to oxygen and also CO2 also. You will learn that later on. How oxygen will leave the hemoglobin and hemoglobin can also bind to the CO2. Okay, to form oxyhemoglobin. This is normal. Oxyhemoglobin is what? Oxygen plus hemoglobin. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry a maximum of 4 molecules. So, हमारी टैक्सी के अंदर, हमारी हीमोग्लोबिन टैक्सी के अंदर कितने सीट है स्टूडेंट्स? 4 सीट है ना? हमारे हीमोग्लोबिन टैक्सी के अंदर 4 सीट है और हर एक सीट के अंदर ऑक्सीजन बैठा हुआ है. ऑक्सीजन बैठा हुआ है स्टूडेंट्स. ओके. So binding of oxygen with hemoglobin is primarily related to the partial pressure of the oxygen. So oxygen can bind to the hemoglobin. Partial pressure of CO2, H plus concentration, temperature are the other factors which can interfere with this binding. So there are other factors which can also interfere the binding. They can interfere the binding of hemoglobin and oxygen. And these same factors, if it goes up and down, what will happen? Oxygen और hemoglobin की दोस्ती टूट जाएगी. Our hemoglobin and oxygen will separate out. Okay, there are multiple factors why they are joined together. See, one factor is the partial pressure of the O2. Partial pressure of, because of partial pressure of oxygen, hemoglobin and oxygen are binding. There are many other factors. इन दोनों के बीच के अंदर हमारी टैक्सी और हमारी ऑक्सीजन है ना, उन दोनों के बीच में बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स हैं. टायर का प्रेशर, गाड़ी का पेट्रोल, सब है ना. ना स्टूडेंट्स, ऑल ऑफ यू टेल मी, अगर गाड़ी का पेट्रोल खत्म हो गया तो हमारी हीमोग्लोबिन को उतरना पड़ेगा ना, बाहर उतरना पड़ेगा. सो देयर आर जस्ट लाइक हाउ hemoglobin is there, on the hemoglobin oxygen is sitting. How many oxygen? 4 are there. Students, this is your hemoglobin. Okay, this is the hemoglobin. इस hemoglobin के अंदर 1 2 3 4 ऑक्सीजन मॉलिक्यूल्स हैं. 4 ऑक्सीजन मॉलिक्यूल्स हीमोग्लोबिन के अंदर बैठा है. ठीक है. 4 are present. 4 are present, students. 4 are present. Now, this hemoglobin is carrying all the 4 oxygen molecules. Now, for this to happen, there are many factors. If you look at this condition, students, अगर सोचो इस गाड़ी का पेट्रोल खत्म हो गया, will the oxygen stay inside? Students, बताओ, आप ही बताओ. अगर इस गाड़ी का पेट्रोल खत्म हो गया, तो will the oxygen be inside? No. Oxygen will go to some other taxi. It will leave hemoglobin. अगर इस गाड़ी का लाइट टूट गया, also escape. अगर इस गाड़ी का टायर पंचर हो गया, तो ऑक्सीजन will also leave. Similarly, when there are multiple factors keeping them together. So these are the multiple factors: partial pressure of O2, H plus concentration, temperature, and other factors can interfere with this binding, with the binding, students. Okay, so we have hemoglobin, oxygen, both of them are shows binding here, students. Binding is there. Now students, under high partial pressure, in alveoli, O2 easily binds with the hemoglobin in the pulmonary, lungs, and blood capillaries. However, when oxygen in the blood reaches different tissues, partial pressure or O2 is lesser in the body, hence O2 is released from the capillaries. देखो यहां पर स्टार्टिंग के अंदर ना, कहां पर गया स्टूडेंट्स, कहां पर गया, ये देखो alveoli के अंदर partial pressure of oxygen is more here. So here oxygen plus hemoglobin binding will happen. It will happen. But all of you tell me here, can you tell me here, is the partial pressure high or low? Partial pressure is very low here, 40 here. So will oxygen bind with hemoglobin here? Tell me all of you. Will oxygen bind with hemoglobin here? No. That's why we say it's reversible process. What happens in this case here is that CO2 will bind with hemoglobin. CO2 will bind with hemoglobin here. Okay. So this is the first category. See here, all of you. Dekho. Under high partial pressure in alveoli, O2 easily binds with the hemoglobin in pulmonary, lungs, or blood, even capillaries also. Even in the capillaries also. See here. In this capillaries, partial pressure of oxygen is high. So in capillaries also, oxygen and hemoglobin will bind. Nicely, patch up is happening. Patch up is there. But, what is the but? The but is, when oxygenated blood reaches different tissues, partial pressure of oxygen is lesser in blood tissues. Students, did we learn that? Here, when it reaches tissues, when oxygen reaches the tissues, the partial pressure is very low. If partial pressure of oxygen is less here, tell me, will the same bonding can we see here? No. So what happens here is that oxygen and hemoglobin, उन दोनों का breakup हो जाता है यहाँ पर. Breakup will happen. Oxygen will no longer be with hemoglobin, because in the tissues what happens? The partial pressure is dropping here. So here also what happens? Obviously here also, you can see here also, oxygen is less, partial pressure is less. So why will hemoglobin stay? Why will hemoglobin stay? Simple. Here also. Now there are students, here we will learn something called as, one second students. Here we will learn something called as, students, ये देखो, ऑक्सीजन हीमोग्लोबिन डिसोसिएशन कर. इसका मतलब क्या है? ऑक्सीजन और हीमोग्लोबिन कब तक जुड़े रहेंगे और कब दूर दूर हो जाएंगे. समझो इस बात को स्टूडेंट्स. A sigmoid curve is obtained when percentage saturation of hemoglobin with O2 is plotted against partial pressure of oxygen. इसका मतलब क्या समझो स्टूडेंट्स? इसका मतलब समझो, यहां पर बहुत इजी है. ये देखो, ये देखो, यहां पर है हमारा पार्शियल प्रेशर स्टूडेंट, पार्शियल प्रेशर यहां पर, ठीक है. पार्शियल प्रेशर ऑफ ऑक्सीजन इज गिवन हियर, एंड व्हाट वी हैव हियर? Percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen, that is basically O2 plus hemoglobin is happening here. Now all of you tell me, इस कार के अंदर ना एक एक करके हीमोग्लोबिन चढ़ रहा है अंदर, ठीक है. नाउ पहला जो हीमोग्लोबिन अंदर घुस रहा था ना, he had to catch the taxi, order the taxi, ओला ऐप ओपन करके ना, ओला ऐप ओपन करके उसको बुक करना था, उसकी बुक करने के बाद वेट करना था, ओटीपी देना था, तो टाइम लगा ना उसको अंदर घुसने के लिए अंदर, है ना. सो इस पहले ऑक्सीजन को तो टाइम लगा घुसने के लिए अंदर, पर उसके बाद जो इस ऑक्सीजन के फ्रेंड्स हैं, सारे फ्रेंड्स, ये सारे फ्रेंड्स जो ओटीपी नहीं दे रहे, किसका वेट नहीं कर रहे, पैसा नहीं दे रहे, वैसे घुस जाएंगे अंदर ना. सो पहला ऑक्सीजन को घुसने के लिए अंदर थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा, पहला ऑक्सीजन को अंदर घुसने के लिए थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा. क्योंकि उसको ओटीपी देना है, पेमेंट करना है थोड़ा स्टार्टिंग में थोड़ा, वरना टैक्सी को और बुलाना है ऐप में सब. सो द फर्स्ट ऑक्सीजन विल टेक टाइम, बट रिमेनिंग वंस will easily enter inside. Students, remaining ones will easily enter inside. That is called as cooperative method, cooperativeness. Okay, now same thing is happening here also, students. If you see here, initially if you see the partial pressure of oxygen, okay, let's say at 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 चार दिए यहां पर. स्टार्टिंग में टाइम लगा स्टूडेंट्स, देखो स्टार्टिंग में टाइम लग रहा है यहां पर 20 रीच करने के लिए, इतना टाइम लग गया. 40 देख रहे हो, डिस्टेंस कम हो गया. 60 डिस्टेंस और भी कम हो गया. स्टूडेंट एक मिनट में दूसरा कलर यूज करता हूं. ये देखो, जिस तरह से पहली बार टैक्सी ऑर्डर करके कूदने के लिए अंदर टाइम लग रहा था ना, सो पहला ऑक्सीजन को यहां पर, इस पहले ऑक्सीजन को इस हीमोग्लोबिन को ज्वाइन करने के लिए थोड़ा टाइम लग रहा था. देखो इतना टाइम लगा, देखो बाप रे बाप इतना टाइम लगा, देखो इतना टाइम लग रहा है यहां पर, टाइम लग रहा है. पर सेकंड वाले को देखो, सेकंड वाले जैसे सेकंड वाला यहां पर है, टाइम कम ले रहा है अभी. तब कम हो गया टाइम थोड़ा, देख लो टाइम कम हो गया. उसके बाद देखो और भी कम हो गया टाइम, और चौथा वाला लास्ट उतना ही है, लास्ट वन. सो इसको भी थोड़ा टाइम कम लग रहा है हम पर. सो इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब है कि पहले ऑक्सीजन को थोड़ा टाइम लगता है हीमोग्लोबिन से जुड़ने के लिए, पर उसके बाद आराम से जुड़ जा रहे हैं स्टूडेंट्स. सो द पार्शियल प्रेशर ऑफ ऑक्सीजन and percentage saturation will change. A sigmoid curve is obtained. Sigmoid curve is obtained when percentage saturation done. Right. This curve is called oxygen dissociation curve. This curve is highly useful in studying the effect of factors like partial pressure of CO2, H plus concentration and binding of O2 to hemoglobin. So इस ग्राफ से हमको पता चल रहा है कि what is the binding of oxygen hemoglobin. अब ये बाइंडिंग हो रहा है. ये जो ग्राफ है ना स्टूडेंट्स, ये जो ग्राफ है ना, ये पूरा का पूरा ग्राफ ये पूरा का पूरा ग्राफ राइट को शिफ्ट कर देगा. अगर ये ग्राफ ना राइट को शिफ्ट करेगा ना, तो हमारे हीमोग्लोबिन और ऑक्सीजन के बीच में दरार आ जाएगा. हमारा हीमोग्लोबिन और ऑक्सीजन जुड़ नहीं पाएगा, डिसोसिएट हो जाएगा. ये राइट क्यों मूव करेगा? इसके लिए स्टूडेंट्स वन सिंपल ट्रिक है, एक्टेड राइट. कब ये हमारा ग्राफ, ये डिसोसिएशन, हमारा ऑक्सीजन और हीमोग्लोबिन कब दूर दूर हो जाएंगे? कब? जब एसिडिटी इंक्रीज हो जाएगा. एसिडिटी माने इंक्रीज इन H प्लस कॉन्सेंट्रेशन, डिक्रीज इन pH. C स्टैंड फॉर CO2. जब CO2 बढ़ जाएगा, ऑब्वियसली स्टूडेंट्स अगर CO2 बढ़ गया तो हीमोग्लोबिन ऑब्वियसली CO2 से जुड़ जाएगा ना. हमारा हीमोग्लोबिन छोड़ देगा ऑक्सीजन को, है ना, छोड़ देगा. T stands for temperature, अगर टेम्परेचर बढ़ गया तो. E stands for exercise and D stands for DPGA. If this DPGA is high. Okay, so in all of these conditions the graph will shift to the right. अगर राइट को शिफ्ट कर गया ना ग्राफ ना, अगर ग्राफ राइट को शिफ्ट कर गया तो diffusion will happen. What will happen? Dissociation will happen of oxygen hemoglobin. Okay, ये देखो स्टूडेंट्स, in alveoli where there is high O2, low CO2, low percentage CO2, less H plus concentration, okay, and low temperature, the factors all favor the formation of oxyhemoglobin. So यहां पर हमने राइट बारे के होने के बाद किया. अगर ये लेफ्ट कब जाएगा स्टूडेंट्स? लेफ्ट कब जाएगा मतलब ये देखो कब जाएगा लेफ्ट? डिक्रीज इन O2, लो टेम्परेचर, हाई pH. हमने यहां पर क्या पढ़ा, लो पीएच पढ़ा हमने, है ना, लो पीएच, हाई CO2, हाई टेम्परेचर। जब इस कंडीशन में राइट जाएगा तो ऑब्वियसली कंडीशन रिवर्स हो गई तो लेफ्ट जाएगा ना, लेफ्ट जाएगा कर्व, ठीक है ना। राइट कब जाएगा, देखो इंक्रीज इन पार्शियल प्रेशर ऑफ CO2, टेम्परेचर, पीएच, तब राइट जाएगा। ओके, सो ये कब जा रहा है स्टूडेंट्स, ये टिश्यूज में जा रहा है। इन टिश्यूज वेयर लो O2, हाई PO पार्शियल प्रेशर ऑफ CO2, हाई H+ कॉन्सेंट्रेशन एंड हाई टेम्परेचर एग्जिस्ट। कहां पर, इस टिश्यूज के अंदर, यहां पर इस टिश्यूज के अंदर। सो इसके अंदर क्या हो रहा है, इसके अंदर हमारा हीमोग्लोबिन और ऑक्सीजन का बॉन्ड ब्रेक हो रहा है। ग्राफ राइट पे जा रहा है। अगर ग्राफ है ना राइट पे गया तो ऑक्सीजन और हीमोग्लोबिन दूर दूर हो जाएंगे, जो यहां पर हो रहा है, क्योंकि यहां पर देख लो पार्शियल प्रेशर कम है, CO2 का ज्यादा है, तो ऑब्वियसली अब टूट जाएगा। तो यहां पर क्या हो रहा है स्टूडेंट्स, यहां पर ग्राफ लेफ्ट पे जा रहा है, यहां पर ग्राफ लेफ्ट पे जा रहा है। अगर ग्राफ लेफ्ट पे गया तो हीमोग्लोबिन और ऑक्सीजन एक साथ रहेंगे। तो देखिए हम लिख लेते स्टूडेंट्स, अगर ग्राफ लेफ्ट गया तब क्या होगा, हीमोग्लोबिन प्लस ऑक्सीजन होगा। अगर ग्राफ राइट जाएगा, राइट जाएगा तो हीमोग्लोबिन और ऑक्सीजन सेपरेट हो जाएंगे, सेपरेट हो जाएंगे। और ये कहां हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है टिश्यूज के अंदर, और ये हो रहा है एल्वियोलाई के अंदर, क्योंकि एल्वियोलाई के अंदर तो चाहिए हमको, है ना, एल्वियोलाई के अंदर तो चाहिए हमको, एल्वियोलाई के अंदर और इस ऑक्सीडेड ब्लड के अंदर, इस दोनों के अंदर ग्राफ राइट पे, लेफ्ट पे, सॉरी लेफ्ट पे, क्योंकि यहां पर ऑक्सीजन और हीमोग्लोबिन की जोड़ी बनी हुई है। पर यहां पर टिश्यूज के अंदर हमको उसका कुछ महत्व नहीं है, तो टूट जाएगा। दैट इज द एंटायर ऑक्सीजन डिसोसिएशन कर्व स्टूडेंट्स। लेफ्ट कब जाएगा, एल्वियोलाई के अंदर, और जब लेफ्ट जा रहा है तो ऑक्सीजन और हीमोग्लोबिन एक साथ है। और राइट कब जाएगा, इन द टिश्यूज, इन द टिश्यूज ऑक्सीजन और हीमोग्लोबिन दूर दूर हो जाएंगे, सेपरेट सेपरेट हो जाएंगे। O2 gets bound to hemoglobin in the lung surface and gets dissociated to the tissues, क्योंकि यहां पर ऑक्सीजन दोनों सेपरेट सेपरेट हो गए और ये ऑक्सीजन तो टिश्यूज पे चला जाएगा, टिश्यूज पे, टिश्यू पे चला जाएगा। स्टूडेंट्स सी, every 100 ml of oxygenated blood can drive around 5 ml to 5 ml of O2 to tissues under normal condition. 100 ml of oxygenated blood. So this is one fact for all of you. Students, I think we will stop here today, students. I think we'll stop here. So if you have any doubt, let me know in the comment section. Oxygen dissociation curve is very easy. Left कहां जाएगा, right कब जाएगा। लेफ्ट गया ना तो दोस्ती पक्की, राइट चला गया तो दोस्ती टूट गई उनकी, क्योंकि वो एक्टिंग कर रहे हैं ना अभी, क्योंकि जब राइट जा रहे हैं तब एक्टिंग कर रहे हैं, जब राइट जा रहा है दोस्ती उनका एक्टिंग हो रहा है, जब राइट चला गया तो दोस्ती टूट गई और ऑक्सीजन और हीमोग्लोबिन दूर दूर हो जाएंगे। ठीक है स्टूडेंट्स, सो थैंक यू सो मच स्टूडेंट्स, बाय ऑल ऑफ यू, टेक केयर। आई विल सी इन द नेक्स्ट लेक्चर जहां पर हम CO2 की कथा पढ़ेंगे, वो CO2 कैसे जुड़ता है वो पढ़ेंगे नेक्स्ट क्लास में। ठीक है स्टूडेंट्स, सो थैंक यू सो मच स्टूडेंट्स, बाय ऑल ऑफ यू, टेक केयर एंड हैव अ ग्रेट डे अहेड ऑल ऑफ यू, बाय बाय।